And so I think 12 weeks kind of came out as something that we felt like it's perfect because it's like a portal as well. So you can plan for something, start the quarter, build something, prove something out, and then show it to your, executive leadership or to the market. Hey, we have come up with this, test it out and see if that works or not.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Yash Dixit, who is the General Manager of AI and Data Science at Discovery Partners, where he brings in over 18 years of experience leading large-scale technology implementations. Known for his work in AI, Yash has successfully transformed fintech enterprise architectures and driven advisor growth through innovative solutions. His expertise spans across various Fortune 500 companies, helping them harness data to make strategic business decisions. And at Discovery Partners, he focuses on scalable AI architectures and high performance data infrastructures, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Yash, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. I'm really excited to get into some of the stuff that you're doing here with Discovery Partners. But Yash, before we get too far into it, let's start with maybe a couple of minutes on your background. You know, who you are, where you came from, what happened over those 18 years of you honing in on your skills and expertise.
Yeah. I started my journey back in undergrad in computer science engineering, and really got into coding, and coming out of my school, I kind of got into open source software and worked with Apache software for a couple of years before getting into Accenture Global Consulting. And as part of Accenture, I got an opportunity to work in three different continents, managing really large accounts globally. If you know, Merck Pharmaceuticals is one of them, as a part France tech telecom company, and then got an opportunity to work on Medicare, Medicaid kind of platforms here in the US. And I always have had a interest in finance and financial markets and things like that. So around 2016 is when I started kind of my executive MBA in finance at University of Iowa, and as part of that, I shifted to the financial industry side and worked as a head of engineering for Principal Global Funds based out of Des Moines, Iowa. And then the last few years of being mostly focused on like high tech, initially with cloud, then moved into artificial intelligence and data science at a few firms. You probably know Slalom Consulting is one of them, and then there's a fintech incubator out of Boulder, Colorado, called Tiffin. So worked as a chief product officer for one of their companies, building out a software that helps organizations, family offices, advisors grow their assets under advice. So just a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's quite a diverse background, and you're reminding me of this idea of the old adage, a jack of all trades, master of none. Well, that's only half of it. The rest of the saying goes, oftentimes better than a master of one. And what I'm starting to see is that from that experience, you have kind of curated some very specific knowledge bases in very deep areas that have helped you now in the space of being general manager of AI, which is, I don't know about you, but back when I was in high school, that wasn't a job title that you could aim at.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really cool that you and your experience has kind of led you to a place now where there's this crossover between the science of data and its usefulness, and then the application of AI and how you kind of leverage that to make the data make more sense. This is kind of what I get a sense of what you're up to.
Yeah.
So who is this for, and who are you after in terms of your customer base or the avatar, the person or the group or business that you could serve?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Then, what I would say is, like, I think having worked at like large consulting firms, and nothing against them, they exist to help clients. I've worked with a lot of clients as part of those organizations, and being also on the other side, as being a client and being able to consume those services from the consulting firms. One of the things that has always struck me that a lot of the consulting firms have this tendency of like not understanding the speed to market and how quickly a client is wanting to get there and things like that. And that's a bigger problem I have noticed in the case of newer tech. So I noticed this around 8 to 9 years ago when cloud was starting to become, a new thing. And, we were working with a lot of different organizations who wanted to move out of data centers to the cloud, and like AWS and Microsoft Azure and things like that, that it was very difficult. They would come up with like, 3-year roadmap or something like that. And the same thing I felt with AI, and I got lucky to start working in data science and artificial intelligence prior to becoming a buzz in 22 when ChatGPT came out. And so I saw that, a lot of times people just tend to forget that certain things can be done quickly to give you an edge into the marketplace. And so earlier this year, I and a couple of partners at Discovery Partners, we decided to do and build this kind of consulting firm that can solve problems quickly, for our customers, and actually do stuff, right? One of the key things that we focus on all the time is if someone is looking to actually build something and do something in the artificial intelligence space, that's what we focus on. And we want to partner and build that solution for them versus giving, for lack of a better term, a slide deck so
Right.
that they can figure it out. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point about just, making it human, making the experience of kind of shopping through this or learning about these products and services more human and not necessarily here's 10 slides that everybody has read and, we ran this through 4 different people in the marketing department and they say it's good, right? Like,
Yeah.
that personalized approach I think is really important, especially in a day and age where AI is taking over a lot of those functions of our communications. It writes for us now, it generates our images, it's now
Yeah.
creating videos, and if you're really well versed on it, you can write something with your own cadence. You can record your
Yeah.
voice
Yeah.
and then have an AI engine now emulate you and then attach it to a video version of you. And so
Yeah.
there almost really is no necessity to have a human involved. And so it's really important and refreshing to know that that's a big part of what you guys are up to. So when it comes to going after the people that you're aiming at serving, how are your efforts divided? I know the two big buckets are inbound and outbound. And
Mhm.
it's been numbers and ratios have kind of been tossed around for millennia of like which part of your effort should be focused on which. And I really do think that this is a personalized business to business scenario where you make your own decisions. So I wonder if you could share a little bit about that element of the growth so far for Discovery Partners, and was a lot of it outbound? Was it referrals? Was it you just had a good network? Like how did that and the initial stages come to fruition?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question. One thing I would probably say is that we were lucky that the executive team that we have, uh, everyone has really good network. And so, as I was walking into Discovery Partners, we already had a couple of deals in place through our very strong networks. We obviously started there, and those deals and getting those deals done very well helped, create that word of mouth. Where most of our growth that has come this year has come through that word of mouth and referrals and things like that. However, I would say last few months, we have increased our marketing capabilities, and we are showcasing a lot of the work that we have been doing in terms of white papers, case studies, and things like that, which is being very well received, and we've received a lot of like new new work in terms of just initial assessment and things like that, but also just a lot of like referrals through those messaging and case studies and things like that. So if I were to summarize a lot of it, I think a lot of our focus, I would say 80% of our growth has come from strong network and word of mouth. And then recently, we have seen more traction on the marketing side and how that has generated some leads.
Yeah, I read somewhere that a huge part of B2B business, 80+% comes from that referral thing, which speaks to a couple of elements that are really important to get right out of the gate, which is you got to have a product that really
Mhm.
does solve a problem and it really does fix something for that group of people that you're aiming at. Then secondarily, you have to have an experience that is worth talking about to other people.
Mhm.
And so it's not just the product, it's also the people that kind of drive that forward. So I'm curious, Yash, what what are you guys doing to differentiate what you do from anything else that's out there? And also, uh, where is the focus in that experience for your clients that sets you apart and makes people want to talk about you?
Yeah. So I think the differentiating factor has been the big factor that we have worked heavily on. Because as you can imagine, probably right now everyone is working in AI, right, to some degree. And so one of the focus that we initially started on, once we got some deals and we started working on them and produced good output, we experimented a couple of areas, and one of the initial focus was how can we provide value quickly to clients in this new high tech industry.
Mm.
And so we came up with this kind of framework, which we call VFI, Value First AI framework. And the approach there is that we look at any client that is going to come and work with us as we help them identify a use case that they're going to work with us on, and we try to make sure that we are not creating a long-term stickiness with them, because that's generally a hesitation in new clients. And so we've come up with this model where we focus on just 1 quarter or 12 weeks. And the goal is that in 12 weeks, we one help assess where the client is wanting to go, identify specific tech stack that allows them to go there, and then pick up a use case and actually build out a proof of concept to show them whether this is going to work or not in your ecosystem, so that they can test it out and they can basically, prove it out to their senior executive teams and things like that. And that model, I mean, I know we are still early, but I think we've tried that model 3 times now, and it has been 100% success so far in all 3 cases. And the reason why is, um, and I think we got this kind of insight from our old experience at the consulting firms, that we don't want to just do an assessment and build out a deck. We wanted to do an assessment, understand where the client is going, really on and on what that specific use case that you want to prove out. And let's prove that out, whether a supervised machine learning will be able to help you gain more clients, right? And we don't want to have you spend 6 months trying to build something and then you put it in production and it doesn't work. And
Mhm.
you wasted all this money for no reason. So that has been one of our differentiating factors. This approach, this framework that we have built, is coming from a lot of our experience from the executive team as to how to think about building some of those things. So there is a lot of art and work than science in some of that. But then also we have hired and built out a really, high performing team that basically focuses on this and continues to iterate on this, which has also worked out really well. So not sure if I answered all the parts or not, but that's where my head was at.
Yeah, it's really cool the case or use case part of this, which is, hey, we're not just going to talk to you and then build out a pitch deck because that's what
Yeah,
everybody's doing. And to rather than doing that, let's take a more hands-on approach. Hey, what's your
yeah,
situation? Okay, let's prove that we can actually do that before we discuss doing business. And this
yeah,
this looks a lot like um, my early days as a salesperson. That's when I was like 17 or 18, fresh out of high school. I got a
yeah,
job at Kirby Vacuums, going door to door selling vacuums. And the
yeah.
one thing that they really instilled in us as door to door salespeople was you need to get the product in the customer's hands, right? And they need to experience how powerful this thing could be. I don't know if you know anything about Kirby vacuums, but they're not the $200 ones that you buy at Walmart. They're nearly the price of a used car. So it's not like it was
Oh,
this easy
really?
sale that we're selling a
Yeah.
$2,000 vacuum to somebody. And so we really had to be convincing. And that did come from, hey, here, take it, use it, play around with it. Let me know how it feels. If you like it, then we can do the deal. If you don't, that's okay.
Oh,
At least we were able to vacuum your living room better than it's ever been vacuumed, right? And
yeah. I
so
love that example.
yeah, yeah. And so it's really cool that that's a part of that framework of like, hey, come in here, let's play around. And it's just to the point. I read this not too long ago about um, marketers ruin everything, right? We start out with this idea of, oh, we got to build relationships online. Okay, cool. Well, we got to take it another step further because we've burned that bridge. Now it's we need to build communities online, right? And okay, so we got a little Facebook group going on. There's a few people that are in it and they're having a chat and then it kind of dies out and that's the end of that. And of course, marketers ruined it again. The communities and groups don't work anymore as
Yeah.
effectively as they do. Now, that's not to say there aren't some outliers, but generally speaking, it's not as effective. The thing that it has evolved into that we haven't quite ruined yet is playgrounds, creating
Mm.
these spaces where people can come in and experience this and interact, but they're building stuff with the things, in real time as it's playing out. So
Huh.
how did you guys get there? Was this like a natural evolution? Was it through experimentation? Was there some kind of indicator that said, hey, this is the path that we should take? And the reason I'm asking this is because for anybody else is kind of in that place where like, okay, we're ready to evolve, but we don't know. What did it look like for you guys to move into that, and what can other people look for?
Yeah, if I was being completely honest, I think that idea was in our heads for a few years
Hmm.
because it originated out of frustration, and in being a lot of situations where you spend so much time talking about what you're going to do versus not really doing it.
Hmm.
And then I've been in multi-year efforts that were called transformational, but then, 3 years later, when it was in production and people were using it, they didn't find anything transformative about it, right?
Right.
And I think it kind of came from that. So evolution probably started prior to Discovery Partners for all of us when we started kind of thinking about what could the landscape look like for newer technologies, and we call it like an experimentation engine for any per this V5 framework. And what we mean by that is that in a lot of cases, at least where it kind of, to your point, evolved, was that one of our really large global client in the media space, we were working with them and they shared with us the struggle. This is the business side sharing with us the struggle of like getting resources from the technical side, the technology side in the company. And so one of the things that they wanted to explore is they had a particular use case and they wanted for us to see if we can build something around it. And so we were like, oh, we have this idea. Let's try this out with you, right? And so we kind of just built out built out a bunch of machine learning models and applied that to their existing data, and it showed great promise, right? And once that started showing promise, they took it to their leadership and got additional dollars. And what has really ended up being is that now has become kind of a engine for them, where they
Mm,
use that framework now that to churn out something that they're thinking, will this be useful or not? Let's utilize this 3-month framework, which is lower cost, and we can see. whether this is going to work out or not before we scale it, and spend millions of dollars on it. And so we've kind of like, whenever they are ready to scale, we help out with that, scaled version, and then keep continuing on this engine that they can test out different scenarios. And they've really enjoyed that. We have really enjoyed that. But the evolution came from that kind of perspective that what if we could work with someone that we have this idea and we want to just like work the deal, but we don't have millions of dollars to spend. We have a smaller budget, want to spend it on something. Can you prove it out in a short duration? And so it was a little bit of a trial and error. Initially, we thought that we could do something like that in 8 weeks. That didn't work out. We also tried, going and extending to 2 quarters. That was a little too long. And so I think 12 weeks kind of came out as something that we felt like it's perfect because it's like a quarter as well. So you can plan for something, start the quarter, build something, prove something out, and then show it to your, executive leadership or to the market. Hey, we have come up with this, test it out and see if that works or not.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the point that you made very early on, which is the speed, right? You really have to
Yeah.
have something that happens as quick as possible while still being thorough and paying attention to the details that really matter. And but it also kind of points at this concept that I really love, which is ready, fire, aim. And you
Yeah.
can only be so ready, right? And you got to do all this work to prepare for it, but then you really got to battle test it, put it out there to the world, and see how the
Yeah.
world responds to it. And to your point, I think that this is evidence of one of those concepts that a lot of people talk about, where hard work and preparation, right? And opportunity, when they meet, that's luck, right? And so, yeah, you're
Mhm.
lucky, but you wouldn't be lucky if there wasn't for that hard work that you put in initially to do all the
Yeah.
experimentation and everything else that
Yeah.
you did to develop it, versus, hey, that opportunity comes along. And so if that
Yeah.
wasn't there, then that wouldn't work. If the opportunity wasn't there, then the hard work's not going to be useful either. So there's this
Yeah.
necessity to kind of look for and develop both of those things. So, as we kind of come to the end of our time together here, Yash, I wonder if we could look a little bit forward at
Mhm.
what opportunities are you aiming at? What hard work are you putting in right now that's going to lead you towards, some of the bigger goals that you guys are after?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you. That definition was great around luck.
Yes.
So I haven't heard before, but I really appreciated that. And one thing I would probably say that we have been trying to do this year is do more.
Mm,
The more we do, the more we prove out different use cases, the more we can showcase to the market that we can do. And our approach, and I come from a very deep philosophy that there's nothing better than doing and showing versus talking about it. And so the thought process continues to be that we would like to be one of those firms that, very high performing people want to come and work at. And people who really want to solve actual problems by doing something about it. And so what we are aiming at is whatever we have done this year and continuing to do in this quarter, you want to take that and showcase that as part of larger kind of forums and audiences next year, to really kind of get into places where we can solve some really complex problems. And so the deep philosophy that we've had, all the executive team members have had, is it's less about the financial side that we are trying to get to. And it's more about, I think most of us are here because we wanted to solve some really complex problems, but it took a long time to solve at other firms. And so we want to take those very complex different industries problems and do. And so we are trying to look at, you know, social justice as one kind of area where how can we apply artificial intelligence in there? So we are working with a couple of smaller firms that work in that particular, who are nonprofits and work in that particular area, and see how we can help them. Education is one of our big sector where we work with a really large client there. So we are trying to help them out. How can you educate, students better? So we see the next couple of years as an expansion of this V5 philosophy framework, and building it into an engine that continues to solve those complex problems and prove it out in those
Mm.
particular scenarios, if that helps.
Yeah, yeah. So in exploring some of these new verticals and new opportunities, what sorts of challenges do you see you facing, and kind of what's your strategy to overcome some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is just very new as a company. That has been the biggest challenge, because I think the question we've heard pretty much all the time is like, why should we go with you and not go with someone like an Accenture or a Deloitte or something like that? Um, and but we don't say that you cannot go with them, but we do, really value doing and producing something at speed, and the personalization that we can provide is different to those companies, because our focus is this area and not like millions of other areas.
Yeah.
And so I think the focus and the personalized approach are the two things that probably you get, as a better input into your process
Mm.
as you are trying to build this. Obviously, there are other challenges that we hear too, around like budgets and things like that. Um, but what has really helped us is our philosophy of not trying to make a lot of money as part of this process, but to solve complex problems. And so, since our focus is that, and then money comes second, I think it helps us to kind of meet the clients in the middle. So,
Yeah, that's really cool. There's a ton of room for innovation and exploration, and even if somewhere along the lines, these other maybe longer standing businesses or whatever kind of get brought up. Something really cool about that I think it was Alex Hormozy. I just was watching one of his videos talking about, hey, there is an or your disadvantages are advantages for other companies, and the same is
Nope.
true the other way around, right? So hey, we haven't been around for 100 years, and maybe we don't have a gigantic team of people, but that allows us, here's the opportunity to be focused on you and make
Yeah.
sure that your needs are met. Whereas if you join somebody like Alex Hormozy's company, there are a lot of people. You're going to have a lot of, conversations that you have to have. It's a slower moving process. It's more expensive, right? There's all
Yeah.
these elements, and it was really cool to see that the duality of it, and the opportunity that presents itself if you just look where it is. So that's
Yeah.
really cool that that's where your focus is hey, listen, we get it, we're not Deloitte or some of these other bigger names, but we have what it takes to do what needs to be done. And so I think that that's going to serve you very well as you continue to pursue something here. Yash, this has
Thank you.
been wonderful. You've been very generous with your time and your wisdom, and I'm very grateful for your insights that you shared today. To wrap the conversation up, I wonder if we could leave on a high note here with some advice. If there was somebody else that's kind of out there up to it, trying to create something for themselves, and they're facing similar challenges, what sort of advice might you offer them to help them keep pushing?
Yeah, I would highly recommend that you know do more and talk about what you're doing. I think that's going to be the secret sauce of getting new business. And when you get in there, do a really good job. I think the word of we all kind of you know don't emphasize the importance of word of mouth as much, and once you kind of do really good work, it leaves a lasting impression on people for years and years to come. I still feel like there are people who know me from 14 years ago that I had done some work, and they still are in, in contact with me. So I would just say anyone who's trying to build something new, um, don't accept no from people. Continue to push. I think the doors do open, and then continue to just do it. Right, the more you do, the more people will see that you're hardworking, and luck will happen as you gave that definition. So,
Yeah, I love that, man. It's so in line with my belief that nobody says you have to sprint up the mountain. You can walk and you can take breaks as long as you're
yeah,
taking steps, though.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. That's really
Yeah.
helpful. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further, or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can reach out to me through my email address. So yash.dixit at discoverypartners.io. If you could include that as part of your show notes. And also just reach out through LinkedIn. I'm available there as well.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll do just that. We'll make sure that anybody watching or listening can get in touch with you easily by visiting the show notes on that point. If you want to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing or AI needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, and I will see you in the next.